Welcome one, welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape Volume 120 something. You can listen to us wherever you get your NFC East blog podcasts across the SB Nation universe. You can also watch us on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. I say us. He is Brandon Lee Gowton of Bleeding Green Nation. I am RJ Ochoa of Blog and the Boys. BLG, happy training camp week to you, my friend.
121 is the volume. We are on, RJ, and it's a great time to be alive. Training camp is pretty much back in gear. I think for almost everyone. Eagles players are reporting today as we're recording this July 25th. I'll be out there at the NovaCare Complex on Wednesday, July 26th. This episode is dropping. So excited to be back. I think for some people who maybe don't necessarily live it every day, which a lot of our listeners do, it's like, oh yeah, okay, training camp. What's that really mean? It's like it's the start of the season. It starts here and it runs through basically the Super Bowl. So here we go.
Yeah, it is like, especially for you and I, like in our literal jobs, like this is like the normal grind. There's, we don't have the rhyme and rhythm of the schedule. Like we've talked about that before. Like you kind of fall into a pace like every Monday and Tuesday, like Tuesday's Power Rankings Day or whatever. But yeah, so it's nice to kind of be back and operational. Cowboys players, veterans have to report today, the day we're recording this Tuesday. So we're still on Zach Martin watch over at Block on the Boys. The Cowboys are actually scheduled to have their annual kind of State of the Union address prior to training camp, right as you and I are going to end recording this, so I can go do that. I will be out in California. I'm leaving this Sunday. What is that? July the 30th. And I'll be returning back on Saturday, August the 5th. I'll be out there with my friends from San Antonio Sports Star. I'll be live on the radio every day from 10 to 12 Pacific. So we'll have links and stuff like that if you want to listen. We'll have guests and stuff. And obviously, BLG and I will cobble together a mixtape when we get out there. It's a fun time. It's a stressful time, but it's all good stuff. Did you have something?
You should have me as a guest. You should have me call in and I can check in. I can tell you what's going on at Eagles camp.
Well, we will literally do that on the mixtape. Like that's literally the point of that. So I mean, whatever.
Wow.
Today,
not invited is what I heard.
Today is the culmination of our all-star groups. We're going to put together some all-star specialists for the NFC East. We're going to assemble the coaching staff. I'm sure we're going to argue, maybe not as vehemently as we did in our text group with Rob Stats Guerrera. You and I were having a bit of a spirited conversation on Monday.
Season's getting started. We're ready. We're
I know. It was actually like oddly comforting. I don't know if you felt that way.
It's healthy. It's healthy. You have to.
I did want to share one thing with you before we started. So this is a terrible thing for both the podcast and the video audience. But can you take a look at what I just slacked you? The video
right now.
And can you tell me if that reminds you of anything?
My center fielder, it's a Astros tweet. I actually really like these Astros uniforms, by the way.
Oh, the Space City ones?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have to give them credit for that.
So this is a video of Chas McCormick. He hit a 3-run home run on Monday night to tie the game that the Astros eventually won against the Texas Rangers. But does that dance remind you of anything that Chas is doing?
It doesn't. And a lot of Cowboys fans aren't Astros fans necessarily.
Right.
So.
Well, this is I wouldn't say like placating the Eagles fans, but so I don't know if you remember this from the World Series where the Astros beat the Phillies. But Chas is from I don't know if he's from Philly, but he's from like the Pennsylvania area. And I did not know
Westchester. It's a little west of Philly.
So I did not know that he was I mean, it makes sense, but I did not know that he was an Eagles fan. So he was the player that AT&T Sports Net interviewed after the game. And the reporter, Julia Morales, she asked him about the dance because that's kind of like his thing, like doing dances and stuff like that. And he said, yeah, Miles Sanders did that in the NFC Championship game. And I was like, whoa, like I was not expecting, and he kind of was like, I was trying to like do my best impersonation. And then she asked him a couple more questions. And at the end, he of course dropped a Go Birds. So I was not expecting just a casual Go Birds when I was watching the Astros beat the Rangers on Monday night.
All of your favorite sports people are actually Eagles fans. So that's fun.
No. That's not true. Anyway, let's go ahead. Actually, before we do our all-star culmination, bow on top, cherry on top, whatever, we have some, I guess, news relative to the NFC East. Tuesday morning, the day we're recording this, Saquon Barkley agreed to terms. Why? Guess. So
why is he doing this?
I've had a very busy morning. So correct me if you've seen some tinier details. So Saquon, by the way, it was like a deal that they agreed to with the Giants. I did not recognize or understand that the franchise tag could be like amended, that like there could be anything added to this. So he effectively signed his franchise tag with about $1 million, not quite literally, in incentives that are partly tied to the success of the Giants, which he doesn't have full and total control over. And he did not even get any sort of provision that he could not be tagged next offseason. Like, this seems like a full and total, like, great teammate move, I guess, being back, but like, this is a full and total L for the like running back movement that we've seen kind of try to run up since the franchise tag deadline passed.
Saquon was out here on a podcast recently talking about, like, I could just say F my teammates and F the team or whatever. And then he does this. Like, what did he get? So this is exactly what he got. 1 year fully guaranteed at 10.1 million. That's what the tag originally was. But he also got a 2 million upfront signing bonus. Okay, whatever. And up to 1 million incentives with an equal amount paid for 1,300 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns, and 65 receptions. Big time numbers there. This is a win for the team. Absolutely. Like they're getting Saquon back, which is what they needed and what they wanted. And they really didn't have to concede much at all. Like, this is a big L for Saquon.
I agree. Now, I talked about the running back market situation like everybody has, but with JP Acosta on this week's episode of Monday Football Monday on the SB Nation NFL show. And I mean, my position, and I think yours and like the collectives, has been like he has really no choice. Like, it sucks for Saquon and Josh Jacobs and Tony Pollard in this. Like, if you view sucks like relative to like getting a long-term contract, but like, given the context of the situation, like, signing the tag is probably like the best case scenario. That's why I think Tony Pollard did it. I think the reason this looks like an L is because of what you said. Saquon was out here trying to be like the hero and the leader of the like resistance, only to like cross the picket line, proverbially speaking, like right away.
And why?
He didn't even miss a single practice.
That's what I mean. Like, why couldn't you make them sweat it out a little bit more? I think like maybe that doesn't gain anything, but why not? Like, why not just show up to camp and hold in, as opposed to the holdout, and like make them a little bit nervous about it. And maybe like you give yourself a little bit more leverage. Maybe you get something more out of it. Like, it just doesn't seem like he got anything that was worth jumping at. But hey, it's good news for the Giants, so I guess good for them.
Last thing, I don't think we should address this because it will very likely change one way or another before this episode goes out. But after last week's episode went out was the Zach Martin news about how he is considering holding out or holding in. Obviously at the beginning of camp. So the Cowboys veterans are mandated to report today, the day we're recording this. That's why, like, I don't want to dive too deep here. I would just encourage people to head to Blog on the Boys. If he holds out or if he's missing or if he's holding in, obviously not ideal. I would guess one way or another, this ends with Zach Martin getting paid by the Cowboys.
It would seem so. They have to, right? What's the alternative there? You're not going to make him happy. And Zach Martin certainly has the case. I mean, he is the 4th highest paid guard annually, at right guard specifically. But I mean, it's a big drop off.
9th overall among just interior linemen, period. And we talked about when we did the offensive all-stars, he was number 1 on ESPN's like interior linemen. And not that that's like, the biggest, bartering chip, but like anywhere you look, like any kind of ranking or rating or Madden thing or whatever, like he is at the top or the very top or the top, whatever. And I mean, kudos to Zach for being cunning enough to recognize they have a lot of contractual situations they have to handle now. So like, that like now's the time. Like, they don't have room to be patient with you. If you want this done, good for Zach Martin. But again, I don't want to talk about this a lot and then it gets dated one way or another. So
I'll just tell you real quick that Lindstrom's at the top of the market there at 20.5. Zach Martin's only at 14, so there's a gap. And also, I think that is an interesting point. Not so much for this year, but kind of like how there was a lot of talk last year about this 2023 Eagles offseason is going to be interesting with all these free agents coming up. I think that's kind of like what the Cowboys have waiting for them after this year. But of course, we have a lot of time between now and then.
Last thing, before we started recording, we were talking about the new Broncos helmets that came out. I saw a tweet right now. Apparently, they're going to be worn with their all orange get-ups.
Yeah.
Do we feel better about that?
It looks like the Browns too much to me. The helmet itself is good, but like the blue isn't coming through, at least in the photos that I saw. So it almost looks like the dark blue is black, and it kind of just almost looks like a Browns uniform. So I don't love that part, but I think the helmet itself is good.
And I thought about like, well, if they wore white pants, like with the orange tops, then maybe get on board, but then you're just Virginia Tech. You know what I mean? Like everybody dragged the Colts black helmet, which is objectively cool.
It's not good.
But like the whole ensemble, you just look like Kentucky or Duke or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you just and like
also, everyone's doing a black helmet. Like not every team needs to do the black helmet.
Right. Well, the Broncos didn't, but okay.
Black's not even a Colts color. That doesn't even make sense.
It is actually a Colts color. It's
not really.
It is. It's their 3rd color. That's technically true.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you don't think of that when you think of the Colts.
but
It's not in their main logo.
It is. It's
Where?
technically it's their
In
third
the
color.
horseshoe?
Every team has three. If you look at the Nike check marks on all their jerseys, they're black.
Where is the black in the horseshoe? That
I
is
don't know.
blue and white. It's
Okay,
not there.
we have to look. I will concede that, but it is like every team has three kind of like colors that are a part of their like pastel whatever.
Like the Eagles do black, but there's some black in the Eagle logo itself.
Black is technically a Colts color. That's all I'm saying.
No, it's not.
Anyway, so we don't have a lot of positions to fill out when it comes to players. You advocated for a long snapper, which I'm fine with.
We do it every year.
Okay, that's fine. So we have a long snapper, a kicker, a punter, a returner. That's it, right? In terms of players.
Yeah, we're not doing punt and kick return as previously mentioned because kickoffs are basically almost eliminated now in the NFL. Almost, not entirely, but almost. So I just figure like one returner is the way to go.
I'll be clear right now. I don't have a passionate take on any of this, but I mean,
come on, you can't ruining the show.
No,
it's
I'm
all
not.
about passionate takes.
So who? You're the one advocating for long snapper. Like the Cowboys have a new one. So like I don't.
I kind of like to look that up because I found that Rick Lovato, the Eagles long snapper, who was a Pro Bowler, he's been with the Eagles since week 15 of 2016. He's the longest tenured guy.
Okay.
Giants long snapper 2020, Commanders long snapper 2021, and then the Cowboys this offseason. Rest in peace to not actually dead but left Jake McQuaid. So yeah, Rick Lovato. Boom.
Okay. Great. That we have a long snapper for this team. Let's move on. You want to do kicker or punter first, or returner?
Let's do punter. I'm going to go with Tressway here. He had the 8th best average in terms of net yards last season, 42.9. He was NFC Special Teams Player of the Month for October, and he also was a Pro Bowler for the second time in his career. I think you can like make the case that maybe Brian Anger had a better season, but I think you have to go with the body of work, and I'm going to go with Tressway.
Well, Brian Anger was a Pro Bowler 2 years ago. He had these points are a little subjective. He had the longest punt last season, like not just of any NFC East punter, but of like all punters. Yeah, but again, like all of that's situational, right? Like you know what I mean. Like you have to be in a position to be able to punt that far. And he also was the highest ranked NFC East punter in terms of yards per punt. But again, you've got to be in like the Cooper Rush weeks really helped out Brian Anger. You know what I'm saying? Like in that capacity.
Also, the Commanders don't really get much. I feel like this is kind of throwing them a bone.
Well, I have some Commanders love later, but I'm fine with Tressway. Like I said, I don't feel passionately about this. So congratulations, Tressway.
Good name for a punter.
Agreed. For kicker, if you allow me, I'll go first. I don't know if you do feel passionately about Jake Elliott. Jake Elliott did not attempt a lot of field goals in 2022 because the Eagles offense was so outstanding. Both Jake Elliott and Graham Gano, if we want to throw a bone towards the Giants here, they both missed 2 extra points in 2022. So their percentages aren't equal, because Jake Elliott obviously attempted 1 billion more. But Graham Gano, they both missed 3 field goals, but Graham Gano was 29 of 32 as opposed to Jake Elliott's 20 of 23. I think it's Graham Gano here. Again, like I prioritize field goal kicking. You should obviously be an extra point kicker, but like that's like if I have to have a kicker who's better at one, I care more about field goals than I do about extra points. So my vote is Graham Gano. And again, throw the Giants a bone.
Definitely not someone from the Cowboys. We know that. And it's not Joey Slye.
I don't even know who their kicker is going to be at this point.
Exactly.
They have 2 on their roster at the moment, Tristan Vizcaino and Brandon Aubrey from the USFL.
And then we'll see if they sign Robbie Gould.
Or Mason Crosby or whatever.
Or whoever. I think it's tough. I think it's really close. Gano was 2 points ahead of Elliott in field goal percentage when I was looking at PFF's numbers at least. But then Elliott was 2% above Gano in extra points, kind of like you alluded to there. They both won one NFC Special Teams Player of the Award, a week award last year.
Graham Gano.
But
Graham
Gano. There you go. How about this? Here's the kicker. Pun intended.
No pun intended.
Jake Elliott was the top graded kicker on kickoffs. Well, Gano was 24th, which I know it doesn't matter as much, but still.
Matter.
Well,
we're here to score
how about
points.
This? The Giants' kickoffs resulted in the 3rd worst average starting field possession last year, whereas Jake Elliott had the 2nd most touchbacks in the league. Also, Jake Elliott is at 28, while Gano is going to be 36
that's great.
He
can be the kickoff guy. That's
I think
fine.
You have to go. Who has made more big kicks in their career? Clutch kicks. I think you have to go Jake Elliott.
Who has the longer career? That's the longest tenured, kicker here. Graham Gano is 35 years old or 36 now. I think. I don't know when his birthday is.
Oh yeah, it's plenty of tenure. He's in his 7th season. He's 28.
Again, the fact that Jake Elliott missed 3 field goals and he only attempted 23, like
he didn't miss 3. I think he had at least 1, maybe 2 blocked, and it wasn't necessarily a low kick. It was just like a really good block. Like, and also
he
he's pretty
has
nails.
kicks that are susceptible to being blocked. I mean,
No.
how do we know he's nails? He didn't have any, like, how many high leverage kicks
He's
did he
made
have
big
last year?
kicks throughout his
No,
career. Like,
I'm not
that's his
saying
thing.
his career, but like we've said before, there's a heavy slant on 2022, and it's not like there were high pressure moments for Jake Elliott in 2022 because the Eagles were blowing everybody out mostly.
It's Jake
So
Elliott.
Graham Gano, baby. All right, congratulations to Graham Gano. It is time for the coordinators. This was a lot easier than I
the
thought it
return
was.
guy.
Oh, that's right. My vote is Cavante Turpin. But I
Yeah, it
don't
has
feel,
to be because
yeah,
he's really the only guy who does kicks and punts. Brendan
yeah.
Covey wasn't too far behind from him in terms of like a numbers perspective, at least punt. Turpin was at 10 yards per return. Also, by the way, Turpin was tied for the NFL lead in muff punts. Part of that is because he did a lot, but still kind of an issue to kind of monitor there. But Turpin can do both kicks and punts, so you have to give him the edge.
I'm very interested to see how he's used on offense starting
If
now.
he even makes the
Obviously,
team, right? Like he's on a lock.
well, that's what I'm saying. Like when the rules changed this offseason, to like again inhibit, returning kickoffs. He was asked, I don't know if it was at OTAs or exactly when, but he was asked and he was like, I'm still going to bring everyone out. And it's like respect on the bravery, but like that may not be the smartest decision. You know what I'm saying? So
can't bring him out if you're not on the team.
And he's not, he hasn't really been involved on offense, and that's not all his fault. So that's what I'm saying. I'm just very interested to see what his role is. And if the Cowboys do carry him, because if they, this isn't quite like, spending a 4th overall pick on a running back level of like, living in the past, but like, the returners are kind of a thing of the past. So again, we'll see. Okay. Our players are set. It's time for coordinators, all 3, a GM,
Maybe
a head coach.
Start with head coach because I think that kind of impacts what else I want to do. At least for
it doesn't impact mine. But this is the longest discussion to me. That's why I kind of wanted to save it.
There it is.
Well, no,
I McCarthy.
I am, but I have some information. This
okay.
is so like I mean I don't want to have the big discussion and then like sweep the other things under the rug. So that's why I think we should build up to that. If you are okay with that, please. So offensive coordinator, I think it's got to be Mike Kafka. Like what is the argument for anybody else? You know what
well,
I mean?
People are going to be like, the enemy's better. And I cannot
it's unproven. Like
I know, I agree.
Like Mike Kafka is literally the only one who's done this job before.
I agree. And I really cannot get over that the enemy chose Washington of all places. And it was pre the sale happening, by the way. It was still when like Dan Snyder was there.
That, by the way, has also happened officially since we last recorded.
Yeah,
just
as
again,
expected. Which you think is dumb that Josh Harris is, but it's also not.
I think
dumb.
it's the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, but you're not. You're so missing the point on that. It's a huge conflict of interest.
Right. Everyone who is ever involved with the Sixers has to passionately.
The Sixers
right.
are potentially like avoiding, the luxury tax and the apron
anyway.
And all the
so
NBA stuff
it's
because
Mike Kafka.
The owner is buying other teams.
Plus, Mike Kafka. I mean, like made.
You would hate that if Jerry Jones was like not giving every edge possible to the Cowboys. If he wasn't giving every single edge.
What do you mean if he wasn't? Like he's one of the most like renowned dudes for doing that. Like that's
what I mean. That's what I'm saying. But you would not like if he was not doing that.
The guy won't put curtains up in his building to help his football team. So what do you mean? Like I would not.
I don't know.
Whatever.
Anyway, there's a difference between dumb and like
Mike Kafka's moment, dude. You're ruining Mike Kafka's moment on the mixtape.
Mike Kafka, I think, is the guy. There's kind of a bit here for very incredibly long time. BGN radio / BGN people followers where I did like a fan post. This is pre me even writing for the front page at BGN where I'm passionately made a plea for Mike Kafka to be the Eagles backup quarterback in 2012. Instead, it ended up being Nick Foles. Kind of worked out okay for the Eagles. But I think Kafka did a really good job with Daniel Jones. Was the guy calling plays. And also with my setup, I think that because I'm going Sirianni, spoiler alert, Sirianni doesn't call the plays. I think Sirianni is best served as the CEO
what a great
type.
Quality of a head coach.
I think if you take McCarthy here, you have to take the play calling into account. And I think that's weakening / neutering your offensive coordinator a bit here because I don't think you're taking McCarthy and not having him call the plays. He has to. If he's calling the plays for the team for real, he has to do it in this situation. Okay. But then you're neutering Kafka, I think.
I mean, again, part of what benefits Kafka here is that he's the only one who's done the job. I think he's earned it. But if Kellen Moore or Shane Steichen were both still with their respective teams, would they both not have the edge over him for this discussion? You know what I'm saying? Like, so like that's what I'm saying.
It would
like
be Steichen if Steichen returned, obviously.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, so some of the benefit towards Mike here is just that he's the only one who's like been around, and he hasn't even been around long. You know what I mean? Like that's the crazy part.
Well, it's not Brian Schottenheimer, and I think Brian Johnson is intriguing, but it's just it's not a proven thing yet.
This is a open close situation discussion. So congratulations to Mike Kafka. I also think defensive coordinator is very straightforward. This is Dan Quinn. Like there's no even close second right now.
There isn't, but the division potentially has some other good coordinators. I don't like Jack Del Rio for multiple reasons, but like, the Commanders defense has generally, I think, played well relative to its talent level for the most part. They could do worse. What's his name? I'm blanking on the Giants defense. Wink Martindale. I think kind of has like some ups and downs, but I think you could do worse. Certainly a defensive coordinator. And Sean Desai is a complete unknown. We don't really know anything about him yet, so we'll see how that goes. So yeah, it is Dan Quinn by default.
Dan Quinn is arguably the best defensive coordinator, defensive play caller in the NFL. Like who would challenge him right now? It's tough. I mean, and the fact that he is, like I think you would rank if you ranked all 32 head coaches. Like I think you would feel better about Dan Quinn than maybe like 2 or 3 of them. You know what I'm saying? Like the fact that he is technically like in the 32 best coaches in the NFL, like regardless of position, again gives him the edge here. So congratulations to him. Special teams coordinator. I promised I had some love for the Commanders.
Oh, I didn't even do that. I didn't know we were doing that.
Well, wow, way to look ahead.
I don't think you said that.
I thought it was going to be John Fossil, like just like
look ahead is a different podcast.
The highest ranked special teams in the division last year by DVOA was the Washington Commanders.
Who's their special teams coordinator?
Nate Katzor, spelled Katzor. Nate Katzor. This is your moment on the mixtape. So congratulations to you.
Who is that? I don't even know who that is.
He's the Washington special teams coordinator. What do you, I mean? So.
I don't know. I've got nothing. Who's Tress Way. Okay. Who else on the Commander? Oh, Jeremy Reeves. Jeremy Reeves, former Eagle Commanders player, he did make the Pro Bowl as like the special teams representative. So I guess that's kind of an argument technically in his favor.
I'm picking, to be very clear here, Nate Katzor, but I think because I've learned to lean into John Fossil and his like aggressiveness, but like I'm against it in some respects, like with Kevontae Turpin being like, I'll bring the kickoffs out no matter what, you know what I mean? But like the Cowboys were so mundane from a special teams perspective that like now I'm like I'll take aggression all day long. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather live on this end of the spectrum than the other. But still, Nate Katzor is my choice. The GM, super straightforward. Howie Roseman, like who's coming close to him right now? Joe Shane, what? Like, although Joe Shane won.
You tell me. How would you rank the division? GMs behind Howie.
I mean. If we're putting Will McClay in the discussion over Jerry Jones, then I think it's Howie Roseman, Will McClay, Joe Shane, and then Washington is not really
Ron Rivera / Martin.
Yeah,
Mayhew.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and again, like Will McClay doesn't seemingly get enough love in moments and contexts like this. But he's the name I would put here as opposed to Jerry Jones. I understand Jerry Jones has the title, but Will McClay is the person who we can entrust with this operation. But still, like he's not Howie Roseman. Like Howie's resume speaks for itself in terms of very recent NFL history. I have always been a Howie, believer, obviously impartially.
I mean, you should be.
Well, I know,
but time where he was not good, and you should like that.
You're the one who has hated on him. I am the one who always knew that he was great. No,
I mean, he had a bad time, though.
You hated on Howie, you hated on Jalen Hurts, he had
a bad post-Super Bowl run. He absolutely did. It wasn't like he was right all along because he made good moves later. He made bad moves, and then he made really good moves to fix those bad moves that he made.
The only person I will say that you have objectively believed in from day one, even before day one, was Devontae Smith. Yeah, that's the only one. That's the only one I'll give you credit for.
That's not true. There's other guys.
Anyway, so congratulations to Howie Roseman. So, like, spoiler for the head coach thing, we're going to disagree. But I did want to at least talk about this. Like, I'm not going to say what I'm about to say.
Did you say owner? You said owner?
Owner is Jeffrey Lurie. Like, yeah. I mean, there's, although I kind of like John Mara, it's Lurie right now, but I appreciated John Mara and his, like, this stinks for the fans about the Thursday night flex scheduling. Like, that was, some cool points for John Mara at the very least. Josh Harris.
Owner, though.
Josh Harris. I mean, why not?
Sure.
So, are we at a point now where every owner in the NFC East first name starts with a J? Jerry Jones, Jeffrey Lurie, Josh Harris, and John Mara.
Wow. But yeah.
The owner of J or the J, I don't know. I didn't even call it there. Okay. So we're just going to disagree. Like, there's nothing either of us are going to say that are going to cause the other to like change their mind. But I did want to read through something if you'll allow me. So And I'll let you pick who you want to go through first. I have a list of all of the coaches Mike
Yeah.
McCarthy and Nick Sirianni have both beaten and lost to over the last
Okay.
2 years. So who do you want to discuss first? I'll let you pick.
I don't know. Just say what you want to say.
Pick one. No, I want to go through the list. So pick one.
I am declining to speak first.
Well, pick one, or else we're just going to sit here in silence
I
for
don't know.
20
You
more
just
minutes.
go what
Pick
you
one.
want to do. Just do
Mike
your
or
thing.
Nick. Mike or Nick. We got to get all the coaches to have the same letter at the beginning of their first names, not to.
I'm gonna say you should do both.
We can go by seasons, I guess.
I don't know what you're even saying here.
I want to look at the coaches and I think it's interesting that the coaches that both McCarthy and Sirianni have beaten and lost to the same way we do because what inspired me was how we talk about that with quarterbacks, right? Like you've talked about that many times with Darius Slay, the cornerbacks, or
Sure.
the quarterbacks he's picked off, the quarterbacks that Jalen Hurts had beaten was a big discussion point entering last season. And I think even through last season to some degree now, although Hurts obviously proved himself beyond that. But so I wanted to look at like this because we talk about it.
Just say it. Just start getting to it.
Well, I was asking you to pick and you didn't want to pick, so I had to explain myself even further. I wrote down Sirianni first, so I can go through him. So these are obviously the last 2 years. All of the coaches that Sirianni has beaten in 2021, Arthur Smith, Matt Rule.
So wait, hold on. Sorry, you're comparing both McCarthy. You're not counting McCarthy prior to this. These are both 2021 on, right?
Correct. I didn't do 2020 for McCarthy. We can look at that if you want. But that was the Dak year.
Well, I just mean, it's not a even comparison.
No, it's not. But I only had 2 years for Sirianni, so that's why. But so gotcha. You're right. Like anyway, so these are all of the coaches Sirianni has beaten in 2000 and in order. In 2021, Arthur Smith, Matt Rule, Dan Campbell, Vic Fangio, and then I had like some doubt. I was like, was Vic Fangio an interim head coach? Like I couldn't remember. So that was a really interesting moment for me. Sean Payton, Robert Saleh, Ron Rivera, Joe Judge, and then Ron Rivera at the very end of the season. These are obviously most of the coaches he faced in 2022. He beat Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell, Ron Rivera, Doug Peterson, your boy, Cliff Kingsbury, Mike McCarthy with Cooper Rush, Mike Tomlin, I would say is maybe the most impressive here, although Tomlin, didn't have a great roster last year, whatever, but still impressive. Lovie Smith, Jeff Saturday, who was an interim head coach, Matt LaFleur, also impressive, Mike Vrabel, Brian Dable, Matt Eberflus, Brian Dable, although that was the Week 18 game, Brian Dable in the playoffs, and Kyle Shanahan with no quarterback in the NFC Championship game. Do you want to hear the coaches Sirianni has lost to or the coaches Mike McCarthy has beaten next?
This is so long. Just get to your point.
Well, these are the coaches Mike McCarthy has beaten.
Okay.
From 2021 on. Brandon Staley, Nick Sirianni, Matt Rule, Joe Judge, Bill Belichick. Well, that's the point. That's the whole point of the discussion. Bill Belichick, Mike Zimmer with Cooper Rush at quarterback, by the way, Arthur Smith, Dennis Allen, Ron Rivera, Joe Judge, Ron Rivera, and Nick Sirianni in that Week 18 game in 2021 that was not exactly real, but whatever. And then last year, Zach Taylor, who is a much better coach than I thought, obviously. Brian Dable, Ron Rivera, Sean McVay, your boy again, Dan Campbell, Matt Eberflus, Kevin O'Connell, Brian Dable, Jeff Saturday is the interim, Lovie Smith, Nick Sirianni with Gardner Minshew, Mike Vrabel in a weird Week 17 game where the Titans were kind of punting, Todd Bowles in the playoffs, and that's it. So these are the coaches, much shorter lists, that Nick Sirianni has lost to over his Eagles career. Kyle Shanahan, Mike McCarthy, Andy Reid, Todd Bowles, Rich Bisaccia. They both lost to the Rich Bisaccia Raiders. Brandon Staley, Joe Judge, by far the worst name on this list. Mike McCarthy, again in that Week 18 game, which was weird. Todd Bowles, Ron Rivera, Mike McCarthy again, Dennis Allen, and then Andy Reid in the Super Bowl. The coaches that Mike McCarthy has lost to: Todd Bowles, Vic Fangio, Andy Reid, Rich Bisaccia I mentioned, Cliff Kingsbury, probably the worst one on this list for him. Kyle Shanahan in the playoffs, Todd Bowles, Nick Sirianni with Cooper Rush, obviously a quarterback, Matt LaFleur, Doug Peterson, Ron Rivera, and then Kyle Shanahan again in the playoffs. So I don't have like a point. I just thought this was interesting context.
Don't have a point. You're just saying names.
I think Mike McCarthy's list is.
Well, here's a point. How about a point for you?
Mike McCarthy does not have a loss as embarrassing as the one to Joe Judge.
Who were the 3 AP NFL Head Coach of the Year finalists in 2022? It was Doug Peterson, it was Brian Dable, it was Kyle Shanahan. What was Nick Sirianni's record against those 3 Coach of the Year finalists? I'll give you a hint. It was a perfect 5-0. What was Mike McCarthy's record against them? Oh, it was 2-2. Furthermore, head coach rankings. You look at any kind of rankings. Obviously, these aren't gospel, but you look like across the board, like any kind of outlet.
I don't think any head coach
kind of
ranking.
Credibility.
No, you know that there is no head coach ranking.
Let me make my point. I didn't interrupt you when you were talking.
Apologies.
Anyway, PFF, Sirianni at 8th, McCarthy outside the top 10. CBS,
8th now.
Sirianni at
I
12th.
have a question. Sirianni is 8th now by PFS standard.
Yeah.
Wow.
CBS 12th. McCarthy 19th. Patrick Dartry, who I think does like the best job probably with coach rankings each year. Like he puts a lot of those write-ups are always really good for Roto World / NBC
Roto
Sports
Pat.
Edge.
Agreed.
Yeah, he does a lot of, and the GM rankings too. I think those are always very like well researched and thought out. Sirianni 8, McCarthy at 21st. Cowboys win total 2022 projected over under. What was it? Do you remember what it was?
Wait, I'm sorry. I don't understand your
Their
question.
2022 projected win total. The Vegas over under win total before the 2022 season. Do you remember what it was?
9.5.
It's 10.5 games. They won 12. They overachieved their expectation. Deserve credit for that. What was the Eagles' projected win total? It was 9.5. What did they do? Set a new franchise record for wins with 14.
Yeah, against
way
some bad
overachieved
coaches
the expectation.
And bad quarterbacks.
Way over. It's a franchise record. It's not like this easy thing that just happens all the time.
Not exactly a rich franchise.
Nick Sirianni in his last 31 games, and the 31 games here because this is when the Eagles kind of like figured it out. Nick Sirianni was rookie head coach.
Only the last 31 because that's when they've been really good. So
the 31 last games also dates back to when the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy had the second bye of his career. It was his second season. They had that bye. His first full season with Dak healthy. Last 31 games. Nick Sirianni, 23.
What is the second bye? But go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, like it was the bye week for the Cowboys. It was just like first full season with like a quarterback who was healthy and starting the whole season, normal season. Anyway, 23-8 for Nick Sirianni, and one loss came not trying in week 18 in 2021. At the same time, you could say the Giants didn't try in week 18, 2022. So that's fair. 2 of those 8 losses, 23-8, were with Gardner Minshew starting. Now, obviously, Cowboys won some games with Cooper Rush, so McCarthy deserves credit for that.
They won 4 games. They've won 5 over the last 2 years.
In the same stretch is 20-11. So he's not terribly worse off, but he is 3 games worse off. Nick Sirianni led the NFL in aggressive index. Mike McCarthy was 12th. That's as determined by Football Outsiders. That's going for it on 4th down and being aggressive, giving your team an edge, which I think a head coach needs to do, in part to be a good head coach. And again, I like in this setup specifically, you have Sirianni being the CEO type where Kafka is the play caller. I also think you need to account for improvement. I think Mike McCarthy, who he is at this point in his career, is largely who he is.
You have penalized Mike McCarthy in the past for not being a play caller, and now that is like a pro in Nick Sirianni's category. That's silly. That's hypocritical.
It's not silly. I think there's why has Mike
McCarthy? Why was Mike McCarthy as a CEO figure last year a bad thing, but now it's a great thing for Nick Sirianni to be?
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. For
you did. You always said what advantage does Mike McCarthy offer? If he's not calling plays, there are hours and hours and hours of you saying that, not just here on the mixtape, but all throughout the SB Nation universe. So how come Mike McCarthy, as this independent figure who's not calling plays, is this worthless bum, but Nick Sirianni doing it is a perfect corporate CEO?
I think there's a value in delegating, and I think Sirianni is clearly
that Mike McCarthy never got that. Right.
I mean, what has McCarthy done for the Cowboys? What has he really done for them? What has he really done for them? What has he really accomplished? Where has he got them? Has he gotten them over the hump? Have they evolved under him? Has he given them an edge? Do you really feel confident they're finally going to break through with him? This is going to be the guy who gets them through this glass ceiling that they haven't been able to break for so long. This is the guy. You're putting all your eggs in this basket.
If you're obtuse about it, has he won the Super Bowl? No. Has he gotten to the NFC Championship game? No. So if like those are your obtuse like expectations, he has not gotten them over the hump. But we talked about it.
He can get there.
You asked the question. I'm answering it. You asked the question. They went 4-1 with Cooper Rush last year. They are 5-1 in games without Dak Prescott just over the last 2 years. Even in 2020, while they were 6-10 overall, I mean, they won games without Dak Prescott. That historically had never happened. And again, I've said many times, Mike McCarthy being better than Jason Garrett is not like reason to throw him a parade. But like that was something that Mike McCarthy's predecessor and every predecessor that he had so far, except for Bill Parcells, could not accomplish. We talked about this many times. The Cowboys won double-digit games last year and the year before in back-to-back seasons. It's super pathetic, but it was the first time they'd done that since 1995 and 1996. They were a playoff team in back-to-back seasons for the first time since 2006 and 2007. They would have won the division in back-to-back playoff seasons if not for what was literally a franchise season from the division rival Philadelphia Eagles. So like, has he gotten them over the hump? No, but he has absolutely done so many things that this franchise has not seen, which is pathetic. But I mean, yeah, I believe in that more than I've ever believed in any head coach since Jimmy Johnson. And again, like,
did you miss where he got out-coached in his last 2 playoff losses, like really badly?
I mean, I don't think he got like severely
He
outcoached
did.
this past game.
He
I mean, or
absolutely did.
I'm not saying he didn't, but like the fact that he did doesn't mean it was severe. And plus, he's gotten his 2 playoff losses as the Cowboys head coach are to like one of the best coaches that we have seen in modern history, who Nick Sirianni has beaten, although not with a quarterback under center. I mean, Kyle Shanahan with Christian McCaffrey is not exactly the same fight as Kyle Shanahan with Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy for that matter. But still, I'm not trying to say Nick Sirianni has accomplished nothing. That's what you're trying to say. Mike McCarthy's done nothing. Again,
That's not what I said.
Mike McCarthy has survived a lot of things. He survived we just sat here and said how Howie Roseman is the best GM, obviously, that this division has to offer. Jeffrey Lurie is the best owner that this division has to offer. The offense that we obviously assembled a few weeks ago was littered with Philadelphia Eagles. And Nick Sirianni now is being praised for not even like being a part of any of this. Like, oh, Nick Sirianni's the best because like his awesome GM and his awesome owner and his awesome players are doing all the work. He's not even calling plays, which is something that you have held against McCarthy in the past, and now you're using to prop up Sirianni.
The win total again, 9.5 games. How can you not give him credit for that when they're expected to win 9.5 games?
Giving him credit. That's the difference. I think Sirianni's a very good head coach, and like he's a walking meme. He was like
so close to winning the Super Bowl and beating Andy Reid. Like that's not this far-fetched scenario, but it's like. Can you reasonably envision him winning the Super Bowl in this modern era? Not back in 2010 when that happened all that time ago, and you had like arguably one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game.
Find me the loss that is as bad that Nick Sirianni has as against Joe Judge.
That is not on him. That is just it's not that game. Watch that game. Jalen Hurts had the worst game of his career. He stunk. He played terribly. I don't know how that was supposed to be on Nick Sirianni.
What are Nick Sirianni's flaws?
I think he's not aggressive enough, but that probably more speaks to a league-wide thing because literally he is the most aggressive coach. But he in the Super Bowl when there's a chance to go for it on 4th and 6, he says, "Well, I 32 out of 32 coaches go for it there," and I just think that's such a loser mentality. You're trying to be one of 32, not 32 of 32. So I would say that's one of them. I would say that I'm interested to see how his intensity kind of last over time, and that's a pitfall for Sirianni. I want to say
the intensity. I'm asking like the meme, like the caricature. Is that what you're saying? Like I'm asking.
Yeah, there's coaches in all types of sports. Like Doug Collins comes to mind, different kind of thing. But for the Sixers, like the kind of coach Doug Collins was like he would come in to a bad situation and he would bring all this energy, intensity, and like it would be like immediate short-term gains, but then he would get burnt out and the players would get burnt out. It wasn't sustainable. So I think you can wonder about that. I'm not drawing a direct comparison. I do want to say, like, I think you have to account for improvement. Like this is Sirianni's second, like what he did in his second year is really impressive. It's possible he gets even better. It's also possible that like some quarterbacks in the NFL, other coaches, that's a flash in the pan and there's insustainability and he only drops off from here. Doug Peterson, for as much as I love him, dropped off to some extent after winning the Super Bowl in his second season. So that's certainly something that works against them. But I also think you have to acknowledge in the same vein, the upside. There's upside here. I think McCarthy at this point is largely who he is. There's enough of a big sample size here to suggest he is largely who he is at this point. And it's fine, but I don't think you're getting over the hump with him. And I think you're not giving Sirianni enough credit by saying he's not the top coach in the division right now. Like, what more did he need to do? If he won the Super Bowl last year, would you be willing to put him on top?
That's a big if.
But what was the difference?
They didn't win the Super Bowl.
Gigantic difference.
Dude,
but
is there a banner
lost to an
that the link will unfold that says we almost beat? We came super close to beating. Like if not for the holding penalty,
we're not giving them a Super Bowl title. We're putting him as the head coach of the NFC East team.
They didn't win it though. That's the thing.
So he doesn't deserve to be head coach of the NFC East team because of that.
Again, like it's
for that.
You can't give him credit. No, what I'm saying is you can't give him credit for winning the Super Bowl when he did not win the Super Bowl. You're trying to retroactively give him credit for winning the Super Bowl because
I'm not giving him
almost won it. They did not win it. They lost, and Mike McCarthy has won a Super Bowl. You're talking about like
2010, and so
you're talking about the whole of Mike McCarthy though.
Mike
McCarthy won the Super Bowl as a play caller. He's a play caller now. Like you held the play calling against him. Like, oh no, what are we going to do if Mike McCarthy's calling the plays? I'm not saying like it automatically leads to that, but like again, you're only assigning the demerits for his Packers tenure to him here, and none of the credit. And you're saying, and again, Mike McCarthy.
If I wanted a wild card team, I would pick Mike McCarthy. If I wanted
Mike McCarthy has objectively improved every season that he has been the Cowboys head coach. To your point, Nick Sirianni oversaw what was literally the greatest regular season in Eagles franchise history.
And there's no credit for that.
I'm not giving him credit, but you're saying you're saying
the best coach in the division right now.
You're saying he might improve. How could he possibly improve over what was objectively the best regular season that an organization that has been around for all this time has ever had? The odds of that happening are almost zero. Of him actually
you know what I'm
improving.
Saying there. I'm not saying
no. You're the one who brought it up.
No, come on.
So
I'm
Nick
not saying they're going to get
has what we define to be the best GM in the division. He has the best owner in the division. He has many of the best players in the division. Both of his coordinators are now head coaches in the NFL. Mike McCarthy's coordinator who left him, Kellen Moore, is not a head coach. Kellen Moore is interviewed many, many, many different times, and he has never gotten a head coaching opportunity. And yet we're sitting here and we're not giving Mike McCarthy any credit for the offense or anything like that whatsoever. So again, what is Nick Sirianni doing if the coordinators are so great and the GM is so great and the owner is so great and the players are so great?
Putting together a coaching staff is part of being a head coach. Like putting together a good staff that other people like and bringing good minds into your building.
So why has Mike McCarthy never gotten credit for this then? I've heard you many,
he doesn't deserve credit because Kellen Moore doesn't
many times say that the fact that Mike McCarthy's not calling plays makes him a poor head coach. But now it is used as one of the calling cards of Nick Sirianni's resume. I'm interested why it works against or has worked against McCarthy in the past, but it doesn't work against Nick Sirianni now.
That's just not you just think like literally
that's the truth.
No, it's not the truth.
That's what,
because
play back any episode of the Mixtape. You have penalized Mike McCarthy for not being a play caller. Text stats right now and ask him. That's what you have both said. The fact that he does not call plays is why he is not a great head coach. But now, Nick Sirianni doesn't have to call plays, so he's awesome. He's a CEO. That was like what?
You're making
what does that mean?
This like single issue. That's just also
it's a massive issue. You're saying the head coach has to offer something. What does Nick Sirianni offer if he's not calling plays?
I think the Eagles' vibes have been great under Sirianni for the most part. Is that not true? Is that wrong?
You just said that might fall apart.
I do agree that
it might fall apart.
I'm not saying it's a red flag now in terms of it's bad now. I'm saying that is something I wonder about long term. Right now, though, it is good. That's inarguable.
I'm not going to.
It's also his offense. Just like I would say, I don't
be his
know.
offense if he's not calling the plays. If he's not the coordinator,
that's not true.
It's not his offense.
I can't speak intimately to the Cowboys operation. That's part of why I'm criticizing McCarthy too in the past for it. When I have, is because I don't know their operation as intimately. I know that Sirianni and the process that they have, they're putting the plays in, and it's Nick Sirianni's plays to some extent. And it's Shane Steichen calling those plays that Sirianni. Is that how the Cowboys are doing it with McCarthy?
I can't told you that.
Maybe it is.
I told you and Jimmy that when he was on for the dumpster diving episode, and you were both killing the Cowboys for hiring Brian Schottenheimer. And I said, all Brian Schottenheimer exists is as somebody to install Mike McCarthy's offense. Oh, well, Brian Schottenheimer's Jets sucked. Oh, Brian Schottenheimer with the Seahawks, they sucked. So you want to put all of this on that and not, apply the same benefits here. I mean, but if
McCarthy is doing the same thing that Sirianni is doing, then he absolutely deserves credit. But I don't know.
He's done that in the past.
How am I supposed to know that? I don't know. That's the Cowboys' process.
Mike McCarthy
How do I know it's not the offensive coordinator doing everything? I don't know. I don't know the Cowboys like that.
We agree that Kellen Moore is one of the better offensive coordinators in the NFL, right? We agree that Dan Quinn is one of the better.
They were last year and they fired him.
No, I'm talking over the whole of the last 2 years, 3 years even. We agree that Dan Quinn is one of the better defensive, if not the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. Yet you want to give Nick Sirianni credit for assembling a whole staff. Why does Mike McCarthy get no credit for assembling a staff that includes Dan Quinn?
When did I say he deserves no credit for that?
You have always penalized him for, again, what does he do? Dan Quinn takes care of the defense. Kellen Moore takes care of the offense. I mean, so again, what does Mike McCarthy do well? I asked you what were Nick Sirianni's
good hires. Good job for him.
He didn't hire Kellen Moore, just for what it's worth. He inherited.
That's true.
Kellen
he was
Moore,
before. Well, he stuck with them. He deserves some level of credit for not saying he wants his own guy until now, which is we'll see how that goes.
Neither of us are going to change our minds, and I'm fine with that. I think we're both fine with that. I mean, obviously, listeners are going to feel whatever.
You're a McCarthy homer. You absolutely are.
I'm not
I
a
am
homer.
not even a serious. You are.
I'm not a homer. I defend him.
I've always been. You compared him to Andy Reid when he got hired. It's like the dumbest comparison.
He was. It was a very similar situation. And Andy Reid.
No, it's not at all.
Andy Reid's reputation in Kansas City pre-Patrick Mahomes was the clock guy, right?
The
guy who can't.
Between Andy Reid and Philly
is that not true?
McCarthy and Green Bay
is that not true?
The same thing.
People used to drag Andy Reid for clock situations, prior to
they
Patrick
still do.
Mahomes' arrival in Kansas City. And so it was a similar situation in that sense. Somebody who had a lot of success elsewhere. Mike McCarthy had more in Green Bay than Andy Reid had in Philadelphia and found a new team. Andy Reid himself at the Super Bowl where they beat the Niners compared Mike McCarthy's situation because he had just been hired to what he had experienced in Kansas City.
Right.
And
it's
he's
not true.
He said that. What do you mean it's not true? Andy said that himself.
Andy did not flame out in Philly the same way that McCarthy flamed out in Green Bay.
Okay, then your argument is with Andy Reid, not with me, because he's the one who said that, not me.
Okay,
and
just because someone says something and like,
just because the person involved says it, that's ridiculous. This is how far you move the goalpost to not give Mike McCarthy any credit.
There's a fraternity with coaches. What is he going to say? Like, oh no, it's totally different. He sucks.
So, like, at what point are you willing to give Mike McCarthy credit? If Andy Reid is willing to, BLG says no. BLG says Andy Reid lied because they've been a solid
team. Cowboys have been a solid team that still can't get over the hump, just like they've been for since the mid '90s. Okay, all the credit in the world to Mike McCarthy for failing to do anything
outstanding
meaningful.
And saying these like things that are obviously
what has
true.
He done? Again, what has he accomplished?
What do you mean? What has he done? We've had the same conversation. See, like McCarthy, his whole status.
What do you want me to say
what
about
has
him?
he done?
What do you want me to like? What do you want?
I want you to say he's one of the best. I don't want you to say anything. I've said all I need to say about Mike McCarthy. So
you want me to say he's the best coach in the division because he hasn't taken the Cowboys anywhere they haven't been before. Meanwhile, Nick Sirianni's going to the Super Bowl.
Has Nick Sirianni taken the Eagles anywhere they haven't been before? Has he done that? Because that's the measurement you just said that Mike McCarthy had to accomplish. What has Nick Sirianni done for the Eagles that they had never done?
They haven't gone to the NFC Championship.
Now
game.
The point has changed. Now
so it's a ding on the Patriots where Bill Belichick goes back to the Super Bowl.
You're the one who said Mike McCarthy hasn't
That's
taken
not
the
what
Cowboys
I meant. You know what I mean?
Anywhere they haven't been
taking
before.
My words, you're twisting the meaning of them.
I'm not twisting them. They're your words.
Are.
Nick Sirianni hasn't done anything with the Eagles that hasn't been done in very recent history. In fact, some of the most prominent members of his team that were outstanding last year were prominent members on the team that actually won the
Super Bowl team and went back to the Super Bowl. That's not true. That's not. They went. Do I need to relitigate everything that happened from 2018 to 2020, where then they were picking
right and how we
after that?
How we rebuilt the team that Nick Sirianni inherited.
He rebuilt the team that he also destroyed.
Good for Nick Sirianni being in the right place at the right time. I do think this will be a very fascinating season for both these coaches, in that it will yield the what is Nick Sirianni really doing thing, the discussion I've raised, and Mike McCarthy's now the play caller. The offense is amazing or it sucks, right? They'll both be somewhat under the microscope in ways they haven't been in the past. Let's get our songs. Let's get out of here. Rachel offered hers. She said it is Glamorous by Fergie. GLAMOROUS. Yeah. That's a great remix on the Super Mash Brothers album. So, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I'm trying to pull mine up so I get it right.
I'm headed back to California. Second time this summer. I'll be there. I mentioned it. So I wanted a very California-themed song. I already did Yellow Card and that kind of stuff. I'm going with friend of Blog and the Boys, Micah Puchel, his band Iration. He is a 49ers fan, so I don't hold that against Push. But they have a lot of great songs. I highly recommend Iration. It's just like an overall jam, overall vibe. But this song is Too Good to Be True. That is the letter or the number 2, and then all caps GUD. So Too Good, and the U has the umlaut on the top, and then the number 2 again, the letter B, and then TRU. Too Good to Be True by Iration.
I've not heard that. At least I can't think of it if I have.
I do think you'll enjoy it.
I have a lot of people liked my song last week, by the way, the instrumental song. So shout out to everyone who commented on that, including my dad. Shout out to Dad.
Shout out to Dad.
All right, I'm going with training camp's back. It's an exciting time of year. NFL is back. That's so funny. Like the amount of times every offseason someone says the NFL is back, because you just say it at every stage. It's like
I said that on Monday Football Monday. There are several versions of the NFL is back.
Training camp's here. The NFL is back.
Training camp, Hall of Fame, preseason, regular season,
week 1 game, like the kickoff game, Thursday night, NFL is back. But then the Sunday, first actual Sunday of the NFL is back.
Or even way before all that, the first day of free agency, Happy New Year, the NFL is back. You know what I mean?
The draft, NFL is back. A big trade maybe out of nowhere. NFL's up, and the training camp has even started. There's a big trade right before camp. NFL's back. NFL's just always back. It's back multiple times a year. So sticking with the theme of being back, I'm going to go with Return of the Mac. Parentheses C and J extended mix. That specific track, which I'll send to you. So that can be added to the playlist. It's an extended cut of that song. There's a little piano intro that leads in, as opposed to just getting to like the main part that everyone knows. I think it's the build up is fun. There's also like a little bit of I don't know what you call it necessarily, like a DJ solo in the middle of the song with like, you know, like the record scratch, like the yeah. So it's kind of like, it's fun. I think it's a more fun, longer version of the song as opposed to like in a radio edit or whatever. So there we go.
One of the better commercials in recent memory, the Burger King commercial that featured that song. That is one of those like I can close my eyes and like imagine like walking in somewhere, and it, you know what I mean, it like being
exactly like an entrance song. Yeah, you're hyped up.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great.
Put
song.
that on in the morning. Like I think that's a good, like, you know, you're waking up in the morning, you're excited, training camp's back, and you're feeling good.
Appropriate given our spirited discussion here. Return of the Mac McCarthy. There we go.
That's terrible. All right, episode's over.
I just want you to always remember that you picked that song because it was Mac, because you had Mac on the brain, on the mind. Big Mac, Mike McCarthy.
I think that's kind of weird how we give credit to like Mac with MC. Like there's no A there. You're just saying that. Also,
you mean how we take like the MC and call it Mac in some context?
Like there's no A.
Yeah, I used to call Mike McCarthy Mikey Mac, to your point. Like, you know.
I get why it happens, but like there's no A. We're just adding an A. I don't.
It's
why are
one
we
of
adding
those,
the A?
What's the connotation of McDonald's that has Mac in it? I guess a Big Mac.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but like people call it like Mickey D's, the Golden Arches. It doesn't really have like a Mac name. Yeah.
Here's another little shower thought for you quickly. You know the phrase like throw cold water on something?
Mm-hmm.
Do we really need to specify like cold water? Because I was looking up the origin of that phrase, and I guess there was some element of like splashing it on someone to wake someone up, but there was also like, which I thought and was my problem with it, like putting out a fire. You don't need cold water to put out a fire. You just put any water. If you had hot water, if you poured hot water on the fire, it's still going to go out. It's a lot of water, I'm assuming. So I think the phrase pour cold water on something, it sounds cool. It doesn't sound bad, but like, what are we actually saying?
Yeah, I mean, like, I get what you're saying. Like, you could just pour water on something, like, right? Like, what would hot water not accomplish that cold water would accomplish?
Why is it cold water? Like, why does that matter? Like, if it's a fire, it doesn't matter if it's cold or what temperature the water is.
When you started that, I kind of was going to disagree, but like, you landed the plane. You brought me in. My favorite like expression with water is be water. I love that. Like, I love but I love when it makes sense. So like. People used to say this about the Cowboys offense in the past, like just do what you're good at, like be water, like water will find the way.
Do you know where that comes from?
I mean, I would imagine like just the general like laws of physics.
There's actually a good Bruce Lee talk about being water, be shapeless.
Yeah,
I'll send it to you. Be water, my friend.
Wow. Okay,
I'll read it to you.
Let's leave, and as we do,
be like water making its way through cracks. Do not be assertive, but adjust to the object, and you shall find a way around or through it. If nothing within you stays rigid, outward things will disclose themselves. Empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water.
As we leave, I would like you to tell me your favorite way that you enjoy water in your life, whether that's in a cup to drink it, in ice, in a body of water. We're looking for number 1 on BLG's water list.
You want a brand or like what do you?
No, like the way you experience it, whether like it's in a cup or like in a shower, in a pool, like
in a shower. Like I'm drinking water out of the shower faucet.
No, not even drinking.
I get it. You're just
it's
should do a water draft. I really do like. I think the top form of water is swimming pool at the beach. Very specific, not just any swimming pool. Swimming pool at the beach, not swimming in the ocean.
Maybe not after the ocean.
Any swimming pool.
Swimming after the ocean, you come in, it feels really good. Yeah.
Well, I don't really care when, but pool at the beach is like top notch.
I'm going to go very different with my answer. You didn't ask for it, but a power washer. There's just something to feeling like really powerful with water. You know what I'm saying? Like
I haven't used one, so I can't speak to it, but that's probably a good answer.
Say the word water and we leave.
Water.